This is the foot brake or park brake switch from a Mercedes 107 SL. They also use the same switch in the Pagoda, the 113 Pagodas, and the bad news is that these are no longer available from Mercedes. They were £39 from Mercedes. The good news is you can still get them, but they are over £200 plus VAT. Let's see if I can drill out these little rivets, take the top off, see what's going on this switch and repair it. Now this is the handbrake mechanism from our European 450 SL parts car, and I'm not 100% sure, but it looks to have the same sort of switch in there. However, that switch is also not working, but I'm going to try and take it out so that we can take it to pieces, see how it actually comes apart before we start ripping our other one to pieces. Switch out, the first thing we need to do is take that spring out. Taking that spring out is nothing more complicated than just pulling it back towards that hole, and then hopefully just pressing that down, it should just spring out, hopefully. Famous last words. Okay, that switch is held into a bracket, which I believe is a 10mm nut on the top. When we undo that, the whole caboodle should come out. The reason you have to take it out is because it's very difficult to get a 12mm span around that nut while that's still in situ. So take that out of the bracket. That should be us. I haven't got this switch out. I can see instantly there's a big chunk out of it, which might be useful because it allows us to see what's going on there, but also one of those pins has just fallen out, so that should presumably be soldered onto the other end of the contact. To get this open and see what could possibly go wrong with such a simple switch, and maybe get an insight into why on earth they're so expensive. So we have drilled the rivets out of this switch, and the whole thing has come apart in our hand. So we just need to figure out how it all goes back together. And it can't be that complicated, I wouldn't have thought, but you do have to be careful when you take things to pieces to try and remember how they go back together. Another spring underneath this piece. By the looks of it, I don't know if they're attached. Remember, the reason for doing this is because this is such an ludicrously expensive piece. So the idea of this switch is this. There are two of these little figure 8 shaped tabs. There's one here which is still attached, and they are soldered on to the end of these tabs like that. So that should be soldered on there. And then this sits just on the other side of these little figure 8 pieces. Well, there's little raised bits of metal there. And what happens is these are in constant contact until you push down the spring and then it's broken. Now we're going to attempt to re-solder that piece on, but before I do, I'm going to just put a blob of solder on there. But before I do that, I'm just going to use a Dremel tool to clean up the corrosion there. Just before we attempt to solder that piece, I've just polished up that little metal nodule there with a bit of emery paper, because that actually did have quite a lot of gunk on it, and of course if that is dirty, this switch is not going to make contact. This piece here, just those end silver bits, I've just gone over those with a bit of emery paper to make a better contact, hopefully. This bit is going to be tricky because this bit here needs to be in situ on that spring and pressed down before we solder the other bit. I'm manually pushing that down, but somehow we have to hold that in position like that. So this is how I've set this up. I've just used a little plastic clip. You could use a little piece of wood or anything like that to push that spring down, held in place with a set of mole grips, and then I've pushed that through the hole there, and I'm hoping to be able to get a blob of solder on there without melting that plastic clip. So I've just clamped those mole grips to there, and all I need to do is get some solder on there and we should be laughing. This Milwaukee battery operated soldering iron just takes about 20 seconds to heat up, and then you get this solid green light. When you turn the soldering iron off, this red light stays on, just indicating that the tip is still hot, and then that will turn off after a while. And the nice thing about this design is you can just put it on a table without the tip touching. You don't need a soldering iron holder. We definitely managed to get some solder on there, and if this has worked, I'll be amazed. So we're just going to undo the mole clips and see how we got on. We managed to melt a tiny bit of plastic on there. I don't think that's a tragedy. Let's put this back together and see if this switch now works. So I'm just going to do a quick test before I clean the rust off that piece there. Just temporarily held this together with elastic bands. I have ordered some ultra thin bolts and nuts which should arrive tomorrow, but I just want to see if this works. So when this is depressed like so, there should be no continuity, i.e. the voltmeter on resistance should read 1. And when I release the switch, that should change if this is working. So I'm going to depress the switch and I'm going to hold this across the terminals. And when I release the switch, that 1 should change if this switch is working. And look at that, it does change. So we have now successfully fixed that £250 switch. So tomorrow when the bolts arrive, what we'll do is we'll bolt this back together and that will be a working unit. Now that came from our 450 parts car and it had this crack in it here. The one from the 280 that we're doing, I've drilled the rivets out, but it doesn't want to come to pieces. We managed to get this switch open, and unfortunately both of these little pieces here and here are broken. In one case, the piece is actually still attached in there, but on the other one, it's gone completely. Now, that might not be a total tragedy if you could get a good dollop of solder on there, but if you kind of zoom in on these, you can see why that switch has stopped working, because just look at the corrosion on those contacts on that one there. So, the other thing I noticed is that there should be this plastic thing here which sits on top of the spring, and then this little spring presumably fits inside it like so. Going over this piece here with this Brax fibre wheel to get rid of all of that corrosion. Yeah, almost as good as a day left the factory. So what I'm going to attempt to do is I'm going to just cut off the end of a piece of a chopstick. I'm going to put that down there, and then I'm going to try and rest this broken piece of metal on top of it. So that's just resting on there like that, stopping that little piece falling down. Now it transpires that this middle spring, I thought it was actually joined on the bottom there, but I think the other one was just held in by rust. So we've taken that out to make our life a little bit easier. And now I'm just going to try and put a blob of solder on there and see if that actually works. Just using the end of a chopstick to push that center metal bit down and the spring down, and hopefully I'm going to be able to get a soldering iron in there and put some solder on there and hold that in place. Now, I've always shied away from soldering because I've always been really rubbish at it, and it transpires that the reason I've been rubbish at it, because my soldering iron has always been really rubbish, this Milwaukee battery operated soldering iron has been fantastic. It comes with the battery and the charger. It doesn't come with any solder or anything like that. Now, I did have some solder, which is just your standard lead-free solder. Now, that doesn't work particularly well because for successful soldering, you need to put flux on the surfaces to make sure that the solder actually sticks to them, and the flux basically cleans those surfaces for you. This here is called Flux Core Solder. It costs about £10 a roll from Toolstation, and that has the dual purpose of actually cleaning the surfaces as the flux in the middle of the wire melts, and obviously also soldering as well. So that's what we used. When we did a test with standard solder, it didn't really work for us. To finish this off, I'm just going to put a dab of super glue around the edges, being very careful not to get it on any of the contacts, just to relieve the pressure on that tiny little joint that we've soldered there. Now, those are not perfect solder joints by any stretch of the imagination, but it's extremely difficult to get in there and solder when you're working against a spring and also in such a small place and trying not to burn the plastic. So the most important thing is this works. A week to get here, so let's see if these are what I actually need. Okay, let's see if these actually fit. Once you've soldered those connections, there should be just a matter of putting this little plastic piece in first. That should just sit on top, like so. put the little spring inside there. Then this shaft goes through the top, and that just should all sit on top like that. And then we're just going to put a couple of these little bolts and nuts and bolts on. And what I would suggest is putting either some thread lock on there or a dab of super glue there, because we're not hopefully going to have to redo this job anytime soon. These bolts here are 25mm, which is just about exactly the right length. If they did, 20, you could potentially buy 20mm bolts as well, but that's actually cutting it very fine. But you'd probably get away with 20mm bolts as well, or you could just cut the end of those off with a hacksaw or an angle grinder if that last bit bothered you. But you could also lock this on rather than using glue, just using two little nuts as well. We're back down at the garage and we're going to have a go at putting this switch in. Now, there are two ways to do it. One is to take the instrument cluster out. You need to reach through and put that through the hole and then twist it until you feel it lock, because there's a little cutout on the top. And then you can either put the plug on first, and that might help keep it down, because you've then got to come from below and put the washer and the nut on, which is a lot harder than it looks. The tip I'd give you is to make sure that that plug has got a little bit of lube on there, like WD-40, and it slips really easily, because you might find that there's a bit of corrosion in there, and the last thing you want to do is be forcing that in to the extent that you end up breaking the soldered joints that you've just made. So I'm just using this relay that doesn't work here with a bit of WD-40 on to put in and out of that plug a few times to make sure there's a bit of lubrication inside the plug, so that when I come to put this on, it should slip on nice and easily. So there you go, I've put the plug on top there, and I've rested that little switch through the hole you can see, and now I'm going to come from underneath and try and get a washer and a 12mm nut on there. Now, it is extremely difficult to get a washer and a nut on there, either when you're lying upside down or even coming in from the top. So what I've done is I've stuck a great big magnet on the back, and that means the washer is magnetically attracted to that shaft, and I can put that on and it won't fall off, and you're halfway there once you've done that. So you can see I haven't actually managed to screw that nut on yet, but the magnet is holding it in place, and it makes it a million times easier to do it when you're upside down in the footwell. So we finally got that switch in. It is possible to get that switch in without taking the whole handbrake mechanism out. It's much easier if you disconnect that bit of the windscreen wiper mechanism there. And now we just need to test it and see if it actually works. So the moment of truth, does that light come on when I turn the ignition on? Yes, it does. And does it go off when I pull that? Yes, it does. So that brake light is now working. We've probably still got a loose earth in here somewhere, otherwise you'd see that ignition light coming on, but I can sort that out. We've fixed the brake light and I can leave the video here. I'm just going to finish where we got the parts. In the UK, you can get one of these switches from the SL shop for a mere £270.83. That's the part number there. That part number into eBay, you can see that they are still available, but they are horribly expensive, presumably because they're common to the 113 Pagoda. We got our Milwaukee soldering iron from these guys here in Bristol, Denmans, and this particular unit came with a battery and a battery charger for £110 plus VAT. So just be careful if you do buy one that make sure it does actually come with a battery and a charger, unless of course you've got Milwaukee tools, in which case you don't have to worry about that. The battery that it comes with won't last for very long, but if you're just soldering the odd thing here and there, it's absolutely perfect. If you were actually using this as a professional solderer, you would probably need either bigger batteries or more of them. We've got the nuts and bolts from these guys here, bolt base. 10 of those screws cost just 66p, and the nuts were just 92p. Make sure you get the thin half nuts, because you don't want them going over the edge of the actual switch.